Hollywood didn't change Elvis overnight. It reshaped him slowly. At first, it felt like an upgrade. Bigger lights, bigger budgets, bigger promises. Elvis Presley had conquered music. Now Hollywood wanted him. The cameras loved his face. The studios loved his popularity. The executives loved the numbers. Movies meant legitimacy, respect, longevity. At least, that was the story they told him. His first steps into Hollywood were cautious. He wasn't an actor by training, he was a performer by instinct. But the screen magnified him. His presence filled frames effortlessly. His charisma translated without effort. Audiences showed up in massive numbers. The formula worked, and Hollywood noticed. Soon, scripts arrived constantly. Musicals, romantic comedies, light dramas. The roles were safe, predictable, repeatable. Elvis played variations of himself, the charming rebel, the misunderstood outsider, the good-hearted troublemaker. It felt easy, too easy, because Hollywood didn't want growth, it wanted consistency. Each film followed a pattern. A few songs, a simple plot, a guaranteed return. The music softened, the edges blurred, the danger faded. Rock and roll was tamed for the screen. Elvis became cleaner, safer, more controlled. At first, he didn't resist. The pace was relentless. Film after film, soundtrack after soundtrack. The money flowed, the fame stabilized. But something was slipping away. On set, Elvis followed directions, hit marks, repeated lines. The spontaneity he once lived for was replaced by schedules. He wore costumes instead of expressing himself, spoke scripted dialogue instead of singing truth. Hollywood was efficient, and efficiency leaves little room for soul. Fans still adored him. The box office remained strong, but the performances began to feel distant. Elvis noticed. He felt it between takes, in quiet moments, in the silence after applause. The movies succeeded, but they didn't challenge him. The industry praised productivity over passion. One film ended, another began. There was no pause to reflect, no time to ask questions, and the questions were building. Was this growth or containment? Hollywood slowly turned Elvis into an image, a reliable product, a familiar face. Risk was minimized. Art was managed. The soundtracks mattered more than the stories. The brand mattered more than the man. Elvis complied, but not without cost. Creatively, he felt boxed in. The fire that once shocked audiences now flickered behind polite smiles. He began to feel separated from his own music. The songs served the films served the system, and the system served profit. Elvis's personal life grew quieter. Isolation followed routine. Surrounded by people, yet deeply alone. Hollywood is loud, but it can be emotionally silent. Friends became co-workers, conversations stayed shallow, trust became selective. The pressure to remain agreeable grew. Say yes, smile, move on. The machine rewarded compliance. Elvis gave it what it wanted, but inside, dissatisfaction grew heavier. He watched music evolve from a distance. New artists took risks, sounds changed, and he stayed frozen in repetition. The crown still shined, but it felt heavier now. Hollywood didn't break Elvis, it softened him, and that softness came with frustration. He wasn't failing, he was succeeding too comfortably. That realization hurt more than rejection ever could. The movies made him richer, more famous, more controlled, but they pulled him away from the danger that once defined him, from the raw connection, from the risk, from himself. Behind closed doors, Elvis questioned his path. Was this all there was now? Endless sets? Predictable applause? The hunger that once drove him returned, but now it had nowhere to go. Hollywood had given him everything except freedom, and freedom mattered. The longer he stayed, the clearer it became. If he continued this way, he would become a memory of his own potential. The industry didn't see the problem. The numbers were good. The fans were loyal. Why change what worked? But Elvis felt the difference, deeply. The gap between who he was and who he was allowed to be kept widening. Hollywood had polished him, but polish dulls edges, and Elvis had been built on edges. By the late years of his film career, exhaustion set in. Not physical, creative. He needed something real again, something live, uncontrolled, honest. Hollywood had taken his voice and wrapped it in predictability, and Elvis was ready to tear it open. Because the movies weren't the end, they were a detour, a comfortable one, a profitable one, but not the destination. As the Hollywood years stretched on, one truth became unavoidable. Success without fulfillment is still a kind of loss. Elvis Presley stood at a crossroads. Stay safe or return to risk. The cameras were still rolling, the checks still coming, but somewhere beneath the lights a familiar restlessness stirred. The boy from Tupelo hadn't disappeared. He'd just been waiting for a reason to step back into the unknown. Because the next chapter wouldn't be written on a soundstage, it would be written live. And when Elvis finally turned away from Hollywood's comfort, the world would hear something different again. Not a movie version, not a softened echo, but the return of a voice that refused to stay quiet forever. And that return was closer than anyone expected.